The views expressed in the following podcast are of such low quality and substance that the British Podcast Awards Association issued a statement indicating their displeasure at our content. I suppose they figured we must have been in the UK since we can barely understand each other when we talk. Nevertheless, they do not reflect the views of our employers, spouses, friends, family, or our sober selves. Please expect to lose approximately 5 IQ points by listening to the show. Your mileage may vary. Welcome to Two and Change. The people are real, the drinking is real, and the opinions, unfortunately, are also real. On today's show, we discuss back-to-work legislation. Josh, your line? Josh? What's going on? Mike?
Read the sign.
What sign?
It's a sandwich board, and he's sitting down. Josh, why don't you stand up and give us a little spin?
How did he make a sandwich board sign that he's able to sit down in?
He's got a lot of time on his hands now that he's on strike.
On strike? What does that say? Local 547 podcast lackeys on strike. Fair wage for subpar work? Give me a break.
Well, he does make some good points.
Josh, if you have grievances, you should talk to me like an adult.
I'm not saying another word until our demands are met.
Our?
I had to join the union. It's the only way I could work here. Sorry.
All right, what are your demands?
Here you go. It's all right here in this document.
All right, let me read this. No, no way in hell. Josh, you spelled prima nocta wrong.
Oh, that might have been my error.
You know, this is ridiculous. I'm not increasing your wages. This is voluntary. I don't pay you.
Well, you better figure something out. Otherwise, you're going to hear this all throughout the podcast. Who's got the power? We've got the power. What kind of power? Union power. Hey, hey, ho, ho. This corporate greed has got to go. Our movement, united, will never be divided.
For crying out loud. Mike, help me out here.
I'd love to, but we're working to rule.
Working to rule? That gives me an idea. Josh, am I understand you're working to rule?
That's right.
Well, have you read these rules?
It's a lot of papers.
Mike, what is the rule about settling disputes?
On this podcast, it's trial by combat with Klingon weapons, I believe.
That's right. Sharpen up your batlets, boys, because today is a good day to die.
I would really just settle for a small cost of living increase.
All right, how about this? I'll give you a 10% raise if you sit down and shut the hell up.
Deal.
Josh, what are you doing? 10% of 0 is still 0.
Oh, man, you're right. I should have held out for 20.
Idiots.
Welcome to And Change. This is Josh, and I am drinking something fancy today. I'm drinking oolong tea because Mother Nature has given me stomach problems today. But I have a badass mug that says other mug is a pint glass.
My other mug is a pint glass.
The my is really small.
I thought green tea was the one that was supposed to settle your stomach.
Oolong.
Oolong tea?
Oolong green tea.
Well, green tea too, but oolong especially.
Really?
That's why it's served at a lot of like Chinese, Asian, Thai restaurants, you know. It's
when you eat their other food, you need something to settle your stomach?
Yep. No, it's a natural digestive.
No, it's fine. I've eaten Chinese twice. Once going down, and I'm not a Chinese fan. I
thought there was a sex joke there.
No. Ew. No.
The worst part is you want to do it again an hour later.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking Chivas Regal. I'm drinking a wonderful 12-year Chivas Regal. It is mediocre.
And of course, this is Tim. I'm drinking the Wayne Gretzky 99 Ice Cask whiskey.
The Canadian dirty whiskey bottle, whatever, is still safely on your shelf.
It is still safely on the shelf. There it shall remain for a very long time. Because if I have to clean the walls, I might use it. I don't know.
I'm morbidly curious what it would be like with Coke.
This is the Wayne Gretzky?
Oh, no. We're talking about, I'm drinking the Wayne Gretzky. He's talking about the Trailer Park Boys Old Dirty Whiskey. We did the review on it.
That's what I still feel about that.
Yeah. See, it's already working.
There.
Perfect. So on today's show, we are talking about back to work legislation, everyone's favorite topic,
Yay.
labor disputes.
Woo!
Yay.
It's like a Canadian pastime.
Exactly. Yeah. So context: Canada Post, the one of the main postal delivery services.
The only one.
The only postal delivery service.
The rest are courier services.
Fine.
No, not fine. There's an actual legal definition.
Can I send a letter through FedEx or UPS?
Yes, but
Can you send it? Can you send it to none of it for 35 cents?
No, but I can't do that with post either.
Okay, fine. 50 cents. I don't know. I
think it's like
I
80
don't use the postal
I think it's like 89 cents or.
I thought it was like $1.10 now.
No, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Last time I was
okay,
at Canada
fine.
Post, I picked up a roll of stamps, and
Well,
I
fine,
got the
good
ones
luck.
with the Enterprise on them, which was super
Nice.
cool.
Fine. Get FedEx to send it for $1.10.
We're a bunch of millennials, Xennial stuff. What do we ever send letters? We send something called an email. I don't know.
Actually,
yeah, letter.
truth
That's
be
like
told,
an email you print out, right?
I needed to mail something to some
Email? What's
relatively.
that?
I needed to send something to some relatively remote place in South Africa recently, and I had to do it through FedEx. It was an envelope that contained like.
Damn
8
it,
by
Mike!
11
We told you PayPal things are a scam out of South Africa. Stop sending
That's
me
Nigeria.
information.
This was actually some other documentation.
He said he was a prince, okay?
I was
when the
sending it
prince of
to-
South Africa asks you for help, you help, Josh.
I was sending it for a friend.
Just
right?
because the name says it's Wendy Mandela does not mean it's Nelson Mandela's long lost wife.
No,
Did she send you a link proving that her husband died?
Uh,
I've seen that. It's like, shut up, Olivia.
yeah. No. Do you have an idea what it costs to send an envelope, like an envelope to South Africa?
$12.86.
No. I'm talking. This was like a. You put like 8 by 11 documents. There's probably about 15 papers in there, and they just kind of go in like one of those full size office envelopes.
Like $2.
No, like 12 or 4.
$160.
You get ripped off.
You got ripped off, man.
This was at the FedEx office.
Yeah, that's why. You went to FedEx. If you went to Canada Post, it would have gotten there. and-
International is about the same cost, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, for express shipping, if you just want to send a letter, it's not that much.
No, this was what, and it had something to do. Like, if I were going to send it to like Johannesburg, it would not have been nearly like this. Was going to somewhere very remote.
Are we including the amount of money you sent in the envelope too?
No.
Okay,
No.
if it's going by horseback somewhere, man, like that just takes so.
I imagine this thing was going to like Johannesburg, and then from there they're going to tie it to like a carrier pigeon. Like I was blown away at how much money they wanted to send this to this remote area of South Africa. I'm just absolutely mind blown.
So somewhere in a FedEx office, some guy's pocketing like $85.
I feel like did you have to pay for bribes for government officials to get it in or something? Like what do you
It
need?
is Africa.
Yeah.
This is a distinct possibility.
They'd be like, it's from a white person. Did I say that out loud? Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
I did. Yeah.
And when we
There's a whole nother show
when
on
we
that.
record. Oh God, yes, but not on this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be your. That's going to when we do a new intro.
Yes.
That's going to be you on loop now.
Yeah, this is going to be me on loop. Is talking about the white.
This is a white person.
A white
right?
person.
Did I say that out loud?
This is a white person. I said that out loud.
Yes. We're painfully
So
white. We're not just white. We are painfully
So
white.
Yes. Neon light.
labor disputes in Canada Post. And apparently, none of us know how much it costs. Actually, I do send stuff all the time by Pure Later.
Sending a letter is not Pure Later is a private corporation.
Yeah.
It's a
and they suck.
It's a subsidiary of Canada Post.
Yeah, but as a private corporation, that's a subsidiary of a crown corporation, which makes no sense.
No,
It doesn't
it
make any
boggles
sense.
my mind. I can't wrap my head around that
And
one.
we actually had a
Pure
conversation
Later
about.
sucks though compared to a lot of other companies.
Now, here's an interesting question. We had a conversation recently. Well, recently, it was about, I want to say about 6 months ago. Sean Lewis was on for that one. And we were talking about postal banking. Yeah, we did a bonus at that same time on the postal banking system. And
It's
I'm curious how something like that would have been affected by a labor disruption.
No, that's actually what one of the things they're fighting for. The labor.
they want
postal
that.
banking.
Well, I think too is that
it's
if
gonna
you
be the
start
first to
if you
go.
start adding, and the thing is that if you start and this is what the post office like. So we're in London, Ontario, where if we have rotating mail strikes, we don't get our junk mail as frequently.
Yeah.
That's the extent of the impact to us.
Yep.
But think about people, especially low-income people living in remote communities, low-income people living in remote communities, people who actually rely on the mail. Now throw in the banking services as well. Now, this is an essential service. Now, we think, they make so much money, et cetera, but at the same time, until you find a better alternative, and the thing is that if you get rid of the postal service, I guarantee you all those private couriers are going to be jacking the rates up like crazy.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
I
I think
think
that
so.
FedEx
Look
and
at
Pure
this
Later
way.
and UPS, I think that they compete with each other enough that it'll keep the prices down.
So you know what makes
They don't send letters.
So here's what makes
That's the difference.
Post
will.
cheaper for domestic, not international. It's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
but for domestic,
Unless you're mailing from China.
sure.
No, there's this is a thing. I'll
Okay.
ask Jordan about how much it costs to get stuff shipped from AliExpress.
yeah.
Like 12 cents.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
That's fantastic.
But it takes 6 months to get here.
Yeah. Hey. That's duly noted. If I travel to China. Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
I'm gonna mail yourself some
the
heroin.
domestic mail. This is
Sure.
domestic mail in Canada, domestic mail in the U.S., UK, everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere that has domestic mail service, anyways. It's cheaper because of daily mail. because they get it out of at the sort of if you're going house to house to house daily, it doesn't really cost that much more to go ahead and take another envelope, right? But a courier doesn't work that way. A courier does 5 houses randomly.
It's like, so it's basically like why a bus is cheaper than a taxi.
Basically, yeah. That's the same premise as a bus is cheaper.
Yeah, you got one route. You have people, although they're experimenting with that now. The idea is that like an on-call sort of thing where you just say, "Hey, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here."
Yeah.
It's like for smaller communities, and
It's like for Uber
bus will
buses,
just come get you.
The Uber bus.
And then it'll structure its. Be interested to see where that goes.
Yeah.
The point being that's what makes it compete. Now, if you start sending stuff internationally, they're all about the same.
Yeah.
UPS, FedEx, like
Again, it depends on what
later.
you're sending.
it's not a big difference.
Not really.
Okay,
no.
so here,
in my experience, it has
for
been,
an example, media
mine.
mail, for example, like mail a book, a relatively heavy book. Next time you're at the post office, get a quote. You'll piss them right off when you realize you're not actually mailing it somewhere. You just wanted to waste their time.
Yeah.
But they have nothing better. Oh yeah, you can't go to the post office. You got to go to the drugstore for some weird freaking reason. But
That's fine.
But mailing a book is shockingly cheap.
They do have individual post offices, but they're
Not here.
No, they do.
Send a
No, they
frickin'
do.
book to
Where?
South
There's one
Africa.
downtown on Dufferin in Richmond.
Yes, you shouldn't have. Whatever you wanted to send them,
Yeah.
you should have shoved it in a book.
Yes, would
and
have
then
been
mailed
cheaper.
the book.
But
mail the book as a package.
Here's the hilarious
Actually?
thing, though. Here's the hilarious thing about the actual post offices that are just post offices.
Yeah.
They can't do like 80% of the stuff because they're like a private entity offshoot of the Canada Post.
Uh-huh.
It's the most weird. Our system, our Canada Post system is really messed up.
Yeah, but
And
we
yet
had to.
here we are.
Yet we had. It's because we had this lovely privatization that happened. It wouldn't be nearly as messed up if it was still part of the government.
I don't like the idea of them getting postal
Yet
banking
it's
services.
still. Why not?
Look, because of what they're doing right now. So here's the thing. You want to put them in a position where more people are forced to depend on them. Because listen, right now,
That puts them in a stronger position for bargaining next time.
which means that the next time they go on strike, now people are out not just by their not just their post services, but also their banking services. That's
And
fucked
maybe-
up. Like
yeah,
there is
maybe
so
the-
much wrong with that. I don't trust Canada Post with postal banking.
But here's the thing: is that a Canada Post thing, or is this a sort of a union thing in general? Because think about it this way: postal banking exists in many countries, as we covered in this previous topic. I should
Yes.
probably throw a link up for that.
Yeah.
However, and with a heavily unionized force, somehow they make it work.
So here's where I'm gonna come out as the Tim on this one. I'm neither going to agree. I'm not going to agree with either one of you.
Okay.
I'm going to kind of come in the middle ground.
You don't
because
have my position yet on this back to work legislation.
I don't care. I'm making it up for you. You're pinned into a corner.
Love it. Love it.
Nobody puts Tim in a corner.
Anyways.
Hungry eyes.
Okay.
Moving on.
I don't even know where to begin. Okay, so
I do.
I'm listening.
Hungry eyes.
I'm still listening, Josh. Go ahead. He's going to start smacking stuff.
I
Okay.
feel the heat.
I'm gonna throw my phone at your head.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Aim for between my eyes.
I will aim between your eyes.
All right. So you're coming in a centralist position.
Yes. So while I generally think that Canada Post is going to be cheaper because it's government run, they don't have the profit motive. I can't deny. I can't deny that the private sector has forced the efficacy of domestic services. When FedEx and UPS came along and came on board, they needed to make this
up
efficient
their
so
game.
they can make money, and people started fleeing over to them because like this is more efficient. Eventually, the Canada Post came up, and because of the profit motive not being there,
Yeah.
there's that to and from. I think it takes a little bit of column A and column B here, but I struggle with something like Post because I can't really make up my mind because I can't figure out if it's an essential service or not.
Well, I think it's an essential service because, again, we don't think of it as essential service when we're in a relatively affluent part of the country.
No.
Well, no, this is compared to go to a reserve up north and tell me we're not in an affluent part of the country.
We live in a country that sees internet access as a human right. Now,
Which
whether
is a good
we're
thing.
and that is a good thing. Now, when we're delivering on that, and I feel like for the most part we are, and if we're not, that's where we need to focus our efforts, not on maintaining an archaic postal service as an essential service.
I think that the postal service can continue to be an essential service. I just think it needs to evolve.
As soon as everyone's got
similar
access
way
to a
how
stable internet connection, postal service is no longer an essential service.
I don't think so. You still got. It's got to send things to point A to
Oh,
point
no.
B.
Oh, yes. And see, this is where I can't figure out, because if you're going to get meds, a lot of things are delivered by mail now, and you're in a rural area, the most effective, cost-effective way to do that still is the post, because
And
of that
you're
daily
also
delivery.
forgetting UPS, FedEx, DHL, all these courier services.
Yeah.
A lot of them use Canada Post as their last mile system because they have the reach to go everywhere. It's sort of like saying Bell and Rogers take this, and this, but they still needed the infrastructure they still need to piggyback off somebody's infrastructure.
See, that's the problem with the private sector and certain things, right? Is if it's not worth their money, they're just not going to do it. They're going to say, "Fuck those 5 people. It's not worth my money."
See, and that's where regulation can come in to correct that. Like you don't like,
You
and
can't force a private company to
we
work
do
in
it
a
all
loss.
the time.
Greyhound, I'll use that as an example.
You can regulate stuff all the time in the United States.
Okay.
Florida insurance companies were
United
forced to.
States.
Fine, but it's an
you know
example
what?
of regulation.
We're going to take a quick break here, and
Sure.
we're going to go back to this topic in a moment. And yeah, I didn't have a better outro than this. Just enjoy the
Behold, segue.
Behold segue. You're listening to Two and Change with Tim and
Hold on.
we're-
What made you in charge? Who gets to do
Why
the
are you
stuff?
the guy who always gets to start this piece off?
It's my house.
You know, it's my house.
my house.
You know what?
Okay.
It's also Two and Change. You can visit our website at twoandchange.ca. You
Also,
can
find
see-
us wherever our podcast.
You can see Mike there and Josh.
Yeah,
and
the other
that's-
two important
and,
people.
And there's somebody else.
Yeah.
Make sure you go to twoandchange.ca and check us out.
I'm not doing this with you guys anymore. Welcome back to Two and Change. So where we left off, we were just having a discussion about the efficacy of the Postal Service
and Spanish Smurfs.
and Spanish Smurfs. Schmoofs.
Schmoofs.
I don't know.
Schmoofs.
I don't know if that's correct, but they have very large black mustaches. Even Smurfette.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, I was just saying. Like, there's only one female Smurf, isn't there?
And there's only one Papa Smurf. You do the math where everyone came from.
Oh my word!
Yep, I'm hoping she lays eggs. Otherwise, my God, poor lady.
Are Smurfs mammals? Are they mammals or well, they're blue? So does that make them reptiles?
I don't know.
they live in mushrooms.
Maybe they're spores.
Oh,
They reproduce asexually. That's why there's only one female.
Then why
there
are
would
they
need to be a
attracted
female
each
if
other?
it's.
Maybe they're all actually hermaphrodites, and she's the only one who just chose to be female that
Yeah,
day.
but
You can't judge.
They're attracted to each other.
What?
Well, all Smurfs' lives matter. So, Postal Service.
Right. After that segue.
Okay, so let's
But
go
blue
back.
lives matter more.
Just take a knee, Josh. Anyway,
Take a knee during the national anthem. Just
God.
do it.
Smurf anthem.
so let's walk back from the efficacy of the Postal Service. All right, I want to talk more about the back to work legislation. So the government told a union,
Yes.
get back to work.
So, and would you like to hear the libertarians' view on that?
Yes, please.
The only reason why unions can hold employers by the balls is because they've manipulated governments into giving them that much power in the first place. So now the government's taking it away, they're getting pissed off at it. It's on you, man.
Hold on a second, isn't it? Okay, but
So the libertarian
hold on a
believes that without any government interference, workers should be allowed to organize. The problem is
second. 'Cause
that there's
that's what
also
happened before government interference.
hold up. And then once these workers organize, it should also be the right of a private corporation to fire all of them and hire replacement personnel, which they are not allowed to do.
Okay, but then what's
And the reason they're allowed to do it is because unions have lobbied for those kinds of protections, which the government has now given. Now that the government is saying, fine, you get to keep those protections, but we're ruling that postal service is an essential service, therefore get back to
but
work, and they're getting pissy?
You're advocating for going back to something closer akin to the 1890s, 1910s, when there were unions but no protections.
still have
Not
child
where Vinny,
labor.
where Vinny came by with a baseball bat to
Not
make sure the
necessarily,
unions
no.
stayed in line.
No, not necessarily. I do think that if you had more competition available in the employment market, that you'd have a lot less abuses generally all around.
You drive wages down if you have more competition in the market.
Okay, that's an entire other can of worms, because you know how I feel about the minimum wage. But we're talking now about, like, I mean,
I think there should be a maximum wage. And it should be $10 less than whatever you're making.
Ouch. Yeah, there you go.
Just to piss you off.
Twitch. Yeah. No, to me, unions were empowered by the government. Now they're being disempowered by the government. They have no right to complain.
Josh, you're twitching? Josh is twitching. He never twitches.
I don't.
He has a note to say to this. How do you unpack this, Josh?
I don't know how to wrap my head around what he just said. It's a
He's saying that
loop that doesn't make sense.
No. So he's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Lee.
So because the powers that union currently have
come from
the government, then it should be up to the government to take them away, despite the fact you're advocating that unionizing is a natural power to begin with.
Did you ever see Dr. Zhivago?
Unionizing is a natural power, but so is the right to fire them all. And that's where unions have been given an extra power from the government. But because you can't just fire all the unionized workers.
Yes, but no.
That's why Caterpillar literally had to shut down.
Okay, so no. It's okay. So that's failed logic, because let's say you had the let's say you
a
had
libertarian with failed logic.
Yeah, right.
That never
so
happens.
let's say you have a power dynamic here, right?
Sure.
So you have a coal mine in Upper England, right?
Sure.
In Wales, okay.
All right.
That's not Upper England.
Sorry,
Whatever.
Lower England.
Fine. There's a
That's
coal
not,
mine in
it's not
Wales.
England. It's Wales.
There's
You know what?
There's a coal mine in Wales.
I'm gonna throw my. This is going through your skull at some point in this phone.
Talk to the Welsh if you don't like it.
All right, whatever.
There's a coal mine
You
in
know
Wales.
what? It's all one area. They just bitch at each other all the time. UK, Ireland,
It's
Scotland.
not
it's all
England,
the
it's
same.
Wales. Okay.
Yeah,
all
right.
right. There
Okay.
you go.
Anyways,
You need more vowels for it to be England.
anyways, you're a coal mine somewhere in the UK. Rural UK.
That's all right.
This the whole town. Everything is all paid by the company. Everything's paid by the
Company
company.
town.
You owe money to the company. Everything. Your house.
company's
Your house is
stole
owned to the
to the
company.
company's
Your
stole.
bank with the company's bank. You get your mortgages through the company. You loan your extra tools to the nicer tools from the bank. You're negative to which is owned by the company.
I owe my soul to the company.
Yes.
You load 16
were-
tons, and what do you
so
get?
and these are all the town.
This was a real thing.
This
for
is
a very long time.
legit. All right. So you unionize, say, I want better work conditions. I don't want to be only under your thumb. They fire everyone. Where the you go? You go back to the company for shittier pay. So the power dynamic never changes. The only way you change that power dynamic is to demand from the government that they have to meet you halfway.
Not exactly, because you can mandate good working conditions without mandating that
Yeah, but
unions
the
have the power
problem
to go on
is
strike
that
without getting
unions.
fired.
But
How
the
do you do
problem
that?
is, hold
How do
on,
you
hold
mean,
on
how
a
do
second,
you
hold on
do
a second.
that?
The unions were the ones who defined the good working conditions. People seem to think that magically because
Don't get me wrong. Unions had their place,
We owe
but
you-
we
we-
have a labor board now. We have protections
that gets weakened every single time that there's either a conservative government or someone has a bug up their ass, or they get bribed from the industry. There is
never-
a power. Oh, you
Look,
what,
okay,
what-
so
what- no,
when
no.
was-
You have never what? Finish your sentence.
I've never seen child labor in Canada in the last 50 years. Like I haven't seen
Thank a union for that.
Actually,
Except that was established
wrong,
decades ago.
wrong. So one of the areas that
Okay,
is-
fine. Let me rephrase that. I've never seen legal child labor in Canada over the
Farm
last
work.
50 years. Was that?
farm work.
Farm work's legal.
Yeah, sure.
Does that count?
Mennonite wood shops.
Absolutely does. And unions have slowly pushed to change the rules around that, to force more and more rural kids to school and away from the workplace, and change those regulations. If it wasn't unions,
Is that a good thing?
yes.
Yeah.
I don't
Yes.
know. Like,
Why wouldn't it be?
Well, hang
Is
on.
is free public access to education and making it mandatory up to a certain grade a good thing for society?
Making it
The last 150 years might. That's all I got to say.
okay, fine. But
I'm not even.
Do you
But-
want conservative governments? Because this is how you get
But
conservative
if you want to
governments.
come on my family farm and say that it's illegal for my own 16-year-old to help me on our own farm,
16 is not the same as 5, and chores is
Fine.
not the same as like working
Chores,
the
no.
sawmill
So okay,
in
that's
the
what
barn.
that's what I thought that you were talking about. That you're talking about, like, the 5-year-old is no longer allowed to help with chores.
But that's there is a gray area though, right? And that's where
Well, there's a gray area of tradition. It's sort of like can like babysitting, for example, is one of those things that's been more recently regulated. Saying that used to be. I remember like when I was like, I don't know, like 12, watching my sisters. It wasn't a big deal, but now it's like I don't think they can do that now.
you
Can
can.
they?
You,
Yeah.
13, I think, and you have to have a babysitter's license at
Right.
that age. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
still.
but there was no such thing as a babysitter license. You just, hey, I'm going out, watch the kids for a bit. That was my license.
There was a babysitting
You-
license
you don't-
when I
you
was
don't get
growing up.
smacked.
My brother had one, but he didn't need one to watch us, and I don't think that's changed.
Babysitter license to kill?
babysitter license to
Probably good that they don't give those out.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah, but I mean, like, my brother had one, but he didn't need it to watch us growing up.
Look, I think child labor is more of a red herring because no one in their right mind's advocating for that to come back. I think we're talking more about things like the regulated work week, like how long is considered work week? At what point is it considered overtime? At what do we have so many consecutive days off? Those laws are established because the unions fought for it, and I guarantee you, the day the unions start going away, which they already slowly are,
and yet the work week has not changed. Neither have the health and safety standards. Neither have the child labor policies. Neither have any of those things
yet.
So this boogeyman of weaken the unions and all protections will come crashing down. I don't buy it.
That's a mischaracterization of what I'm saying. I'm saying that.
So I'm going to come in. I'm sort of going to come in the middle again here.
Wow.
Well, I have my opinions of unions. So for better or for worse, they need to exist, but they also really need to get their shit together.
Yeah.
So I come from a generation that really unions have fucked us, because the first people to drop off on any union fight, just almost any, I can name multiple big union fights. The first person to drop off for losing their future benefits for pensions and stuff with the fight with the company, it's the future generations. They up their percentages on their longtime members. Their new members don't get fuck all.
No one's calling them saints.
Like, and it's become a political gambit. You have these big giant unions like Unifor that are their own political entities and bodies that aren't even representative of the people.
That's where most of my animosity comes from.
Well,
unions
like UFCW, who United Food and Commercial Workers, who their average employee makes minimum wage with slightly better benefits. That's not a union. That's just a cat. And then they take that money for the union dues, and the union guys make like 70, 80 grand a year. That's messed up.
Yeah, I'm not saying there aren't problems with unions. Don't get me wrong. I don't think unions are necessarily saints. But you can't deny there's a correlative effect. I'm not saying correlation always equals causation, but I think you have to look at it here. Union participation rates when compared to average wages, we complain a lot that wages are stagnant, but union participation rate is dropping while corporate and executive compensation keeps increasing. Now, look at countries, for example, that have not only strong union participation rates, but I'll take Germany, for example.
Yeah.
Germany has a very strong union system, and they also have mandated worker representation on their executive boards. Guess what? Healthy economy, healthy wages, even compared to Canada and the United States.
No, I'm not arguing that correlation. I'm not, at least within unions in Canada and the United States, I'm not a huge cheerleader of the current status, because I think there's a lot of, I think we're going through a transitional time where there's going to be new unions that need to be created in the sectors where there aren't unions.
But that will require certain dragons.
The service economy. There's not a lot of unions in the service economy.
There aren't. And I mean, but that would require certain dragons to be killed. Like Unifor, for example, is not going to just let other unions just spring up out of nowhere. Unifor has been expanding into more and more different areas, and every time they do it, they screw over everybody that's involved.
I think the thing too is that I think you're absolutely right, and I think things have to get shittier. I'm talking like 1920s shittier before people start waking up to maybe they should. Right. So I mean, take a look at, for example, the so-called gig economy, for example. I mean, it works for some people, but it shits on a lot of other people. Basically, the only people who make money in the gig economy are the people who make the fucking app.
Yeah, pretty much.
And until people actually band together on this, then it's going to continue to happen.
Yeah,
people get fucked.
Yeah, well, there's pros and cons to the gig economy. There are people with their MBAs that are making all kinds of cool things that aren't making apps and stuff. That are sort of working in a gig economy style. But
no. Look, there's a difference between gig economy and freelance. It used to be called freelance when I worked for myself as an entrepreneur versus the quote gig economy unquote, where I have precarious employment at best. That's not the same thing as an MBA.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Well, there is an increase in freelance, which I think is a good thing. But I agree with you. The gig economy is a dangerous, slippery slope. But
and as the jobs continue
let's come down to the Canada Post strike. Let's bring it back, because there's a lot of union talk.
It is going to be a lot of union talk, but I mean, really the germ of this is that okay, Canada Post effective, not effective, unions effective, not effective, but really, does the government have the right to legislate back to work for something that is, in Mike's word, not necessarily an essential service.
I can't make up my mind.
Whether it's essential service or not.
I'm rarely a fence sitter. I usually have a strong opinion one way or the other on everything, but I honestly can't make up my mind on this.
To me, in the day and age where internet is right, they're not.
And here's the thing. Why is the union the only one getting shit too for this?
What do you mean?
Well, first of all, it's like, oh, the union this, union that. What about the fucking management? The management who aren't able to come to consensus. There are two parties negotiating.
Yeah, I don't know.
But we're only focusing on the one party as being the shit party.
I think a big part of that is this perception that they already earn enough money. So why the hell are they barking for more?
Why are you that's like being mad at your neighbor for having a nicer car than you.
Well, not necessarily. It's more
go get a better job, get a better car.
Sure, I'll go to Jobland where the better jobs are in all over the place, and I'll just pick one off of the job tree.
So in my opinion,
I have a job tree.
Yeah,
this is why I sit.
Well, apple tree, Steve Jobs. There are no apple trees here.
Wow.
So this is why I sit in the middle. I can't decide whether postal service is an essential service or not. If it's an essential service, the government, in my opinion, pretty much has a right to legislate back.
Frankly, an obligation.
Like an obligation. You can't strike as an ambulance or police service. You get legislated back to work or a hospital, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's
all right. Here's the other thing.
But so here's the other flip side. I want to touch on your point of we're talking a lot on unions, and we should be talking about management too. So management for Canada Post has never said, well, let's work with a mediator, even though the unions offered that multiple times. That's a strike. Like, they should be doing that. However, on the flip side of the union, the management offered what I thought was a fairly fair deal.
Yeah.
And the union didn't allow their members to vote on it.
And I think,
which is absolute
that's
bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, then again, I mean, I'm not part of the union. I don't know necessarily the internal rules. This is part of my problem with the back to work legislation. Okay, maybe the Liberal government is interpreting the Postal Service as an essential service, fine. But go to other precedents have been set. Now, a very dangerous precedent was set by the previous Conservative government by mandating that flight attendants and pilots were an essential service.
See, that was bullshit.
Quote, the economy is an essential service, unquote.
Yes.
By that logic,
there's no such thing as a legal strike anywhere.
There's no such thing as a legal strike anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think I hate slippery slope arguments because they are a logical fallacy. But at the same time, once you've opened the can of worms, it's... I mean, where do you stop with the argument? I think really, I have no problem with like forced mediation, but I think they should be allowed to continue their strike until some sort of arbitration, until an arbitrator can come up with something. Yeah,
well, then that's what happens. So for instance, for police or ambulance, when they have a union disagreement, they don't strike, but they do push forward to an arbitrator, and the arbitrator will make that decision. And both parties are bound to it.
Yes,
and
which I think is reasonable.
So, and that's where I'm coming. This is where I come. Like, I don't know if it's an essential service or not. If it's not an essential service, what the government is doing is wrong. If it's an essential service,
what they're doing is still wrong because they should be forcing arbitration instead.
Which is basically if they force back to work legislation, that's what'll happen.
Sure. Yeah.
I think the manner they were striking in, the rotating strikes, I think was reasonable.
I do too.
Now here it's a nuanced argument because do I think they're an essential service? I don't think they're an essential service, but I think there's more than one category here. I think that there's non-essential. Let's say if, United Food Workers or whatever went on strike.
Pencil makers.
Sure. Okay. The local piano tuners, 103, I mean, they're not an essential service, okay?
Yeah.
I think there are important services like the postal system that should have restrictions on certain job actions, but not completely be unallowed to strike. Disallowed? Strike?
Maybe no further than
the rotating strikes. I think were a reasonable step they took. And here's the thing: it's not like the unions were like, "Fuck this, we're not picking up any more mail." They were actually going out of their way to only do. They were doing high impact, but also minor affected areas of postal strikes.
Yeah.
They weren't telling the people in Attawapiskat, sorry, we can't deliver your insulin this week because we're on strike. They weren't doing that.
Yeah. And in that sense, they were being reasonable about it.
They were being reasonable.
Like, if you compare that to like when the garbage workers of Toronto all went on strike and there was garbage piling up literally everywhere, do you want to talk about an essential service? Wow. Like, and that was a very, very high impact.
But that showed exactly the people of Toronto and the people of Toronto put pressure on the government
Yes.
to come up with a resolution.
Yes.
And that's exactly what the Postal Service was trying to do.
Right.
Have the people apply the pressure as well. But here's the thing, the government, who's basically the employers, and the management, who are basically the employers, say, oh, look at the unions, they're doing this action. It's, again, not always the unions doing it.
But here's the funny thing about all this is the strike doesn't affect the big corporations. They actually mostly benefit them. Amazon does multiple everything.
Yeah.
Who it really affects actually is the small business people.
And I think we're going to have to leave it there because we are out of time. Sorry. Oh, did you have something pithy that you can say in less than 5 seconds? No, he's a libertarian. He doesn't.
Oh,
Anyway.
shut up. I was going to say that your mustache looks lovely, but now I'm not going to say that anymore.
Well,
A typical libertarian answer.
Well, rides will be given later. Anyway, we want to thank everyone for listening to Two and Change. If you're if you're enjoying the show, make sure you continue to listen on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check out our website, twoandchange.ca. Read our blog. We'll eventually throw up some new content. And hey, guess what? We're going to be playing with our format.
Tune in for our
I'm
next
going to play it
episode.
with something, but I don't know.
Yep, so we should have some announcements in relative short order about what we're doing, maybe some more live content, maybe some more video content. We'll see. Stay tuned. Anyway, for Two and Change, I'm Tim.
I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
We'll see you next time. It is rather resplendent looking, isn't it?
It is. I don't know if you've noticed this,
got a
but I'm
little
going
Hulk
with
Hogan
a little bit,
Brother.
I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm actually doing like
the
I'm doing the anti-Movember thing. It's like the reverse Movember is what I'm going for.
I thought it was the Amish.
I thought he was going for mutton chops.
I was going for yeah. Let's go with that. Like the sideburns. I think you know what? I showed like I just cleaned it up again for today. I walked out of the bathroom to show my wife. After she was finished laughing, she told me that apparently.